Hello, everyone. This is the Parks Academy, where we discuss and celebrate all things theme parks related. We focus mainly on Disney parks and resorts in both Anaheim and Orlando. My name is Paige.
My name is Steven.
And today we will be talking about our Disney pet peeves.
I feel like this episode is going to be kind of like walking on eggshells because I don't want to come off as an abrasive, opinionated person. Right?
But what if you are an abrasive, opinionated person?
The thing is, yeah, right. But I mean, there's a difference between doing that and, in secret into a little cup and like spouting it off into a microphone. So I do want to proceed with caution with this one because I want to be kind, and I think we will be.
I think we will be.
But at the same time, there are certain things about going to Disney that are frustrating. And I'm not talking about prices and, I'm not talking about like them increasing prices and crowd sizes.
We're
and
not
stuff like
ragging
that.
on Disney.
No, this is
episode.
more like guests who
This
do
is
things that
like-
are kind of like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking?
This
Disney
is
edition.
This is our Disney etiquette episode.
Yeah, I like that. Either it's Disney etiquette or what are you thinking Disney edition.
Yes.
So I'm gonna get the first one out of the way because I feel like this one is a hot button, and I don't want to be disrespectful of people's career choices.
But you're kind of being disrespectful of people's career choices.
But oh my god,
That's just our opinion.
Vloggers are very difficult to deal with in parks. Very fortunately, we did not really run into anyone who was taking up space vlogging in the parks and getting in front of you to film merchandise and film rides and just kind of be a nuisance. But we have had experiences in the past where we were stuck with vloggers in line, and it nearly put me in my grave.
It did.
The very first time I got to ride Rise of the Resistance, we were in line with someone who was vlogging the whole time.
It was like 3 vloggers right in front of us.
And were we on the ride vehicle with them?
Yes.
Yeah, I almost lost my mind on these people because they were being really annoying, very loud, and, just doing this whole like selfie vlogger thing.
They're narrating
everything. And I'm like, the line is really great. And I want to experience like, not even when you get to the line, where like you're transitioning from the room with Ray and then into the ship with Akbar and all that. I'm talking just like the line that you go in through. And I just wanted to enjoy it and soak it up and look at like Poe Dameron's outfits and the flight suits and the charts. And it's really difficult for me to enjoy something when people are being very loud about them and about themselves enjoying it too. Not even for the sake of like the group they're with, but for the sake of, boy, I hope this gets a lot of views on YouTube.
Right. Here's my 2 cents about the whole thing. So, we live in a day and age where there's vloggers, there's Disney influencers. That's just the reality of the situation. We have opinions about that, and we're not trying to rag on anyone. What we care about is when those influencers or vloggers are making the experience for other guests less so because they're taking up so much space and not considering that there's other people around them trying to experience it. For example,
like sucking the air out of the room.
For example, when you're trying to get a photo in front of the castle and there's a girl who is clearly a Disney influencer and she's taking 15 minutes of her own time blocking up the really good photo spot in front of the castle because she's trying to get the perfect photo. I understand. It's a job you have to do, but there's thousands and thousands of people there with their kids or just other adults trying to, get their photo so they can have it for their memories and move forward. And it's more consider that there are a lot of other people around you trying to have a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
And so to take up that much space or time, or to take away or detract from the experience of others by narrating things all through a ride when you're just trying to take in all of the pieces of the ride for the first time, it just seems like, that's just interesting.
Can I say something really that could be considered? This could be considered insensitive, what I'm about to say.
Well, this is our podcast, so you can say what you want, but just
I'm sorry for coughing. It's like dry air, wet winter season here. So my throat's kind of giving me the business. When I do, so, okay, so I do, my job is to do digital marketing for businesses. That's what I do for a living. However, I feel like you should not be taking up stealing space from other people if it's not your, if you're not going to get fired for not doing it. Like, if it's not your, like, real, like, I have to report back to my boss job, I feel like you need to be very cognizant of, my place is to wait for the guests to do their thing because I have season passes and I do this all the time. And then when there's a clear opening, I will take my shot. I will do my thing. And I'm a photographer. I do a lot of photography for things. When I'm hired for a job, I know that my job is to be like, I'm getting in front of you. This is my thing. I got to take the photo. I got to get the shot. I don't care if there's other people who are doing it out of hobby or there to get their own pictures. Like, if I'm hired for a job, I will make sure that get what I need to get. But if I'm like an enthusiast and I'm just taking photos because it's fun, I don't want to intrude in front of other people because that's going to derail their experience that they've paid for, that they're there for. So that's kind of my thought on that. The other thing is, what was the other thing I was going to say? I got all like fired up. Oh, okay, here it is. I live by a philosophy that I'm trying to teach my daughter. My daughter started walking, and already at less than a year old, I'm trying to teach her my philosophy of keep moving and get out of the way. Okay? So basically what that means is, if you're in a crowded area, if there's people coming up behind you that are either waiting to see the next thing or they're walking a little bit faster, keep moving. Like, don't stop in front of people and pause and just move out of the way. And so I feel like that can kind of go for all of that, you know, and obviously everyone needs to get their picture, their video. It's important, you know, you want to make your own memories, but yeah, that's kind of my whole thought about that.
you are very opinionated about that.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with creating content and creators. I just think it's really important not to saturate what you're trying to accomplish at the expense of other people who are trying to experience something fun.
So the Disney etiquette #1 lesson is get your content not at the expense of other people's experience.
That's sort of how I feel at aquariums and zoos.
Yes.
Whenever I get up to the very front and I'm looking at the good fish, the very first thing I think of is the timer's running. And I need to get out of the way quickly because there's other people behind me that want to see.
Right.
So I'm very aware of, like, once I get up there, I have a finite amount of time to see what I want to see and do what I want to do, and then I better move because there's other people that want to turn.
Right.
And I'm probably a little bit. I'm a very passive person, so I'm probably very a little bit to a fault, thinking about other people's experiences over my own. But that's not a brag. It's just sort of the way that my mind works.
Right. Yep. I think that's great. Right.
Whoop.
Number 2.
Out of breath on that one.
Number 2. This one is a super random weird thing that I don't ever remember experiencing on past Disney trips, but came up several times on this one.
This is a weird one.
And that is squirrels and people feeding squirrels. What a weird thing that we even have to come on here and say, hey, people, don't feed the squirrels. And here's why. Example A, we're sitting in Magic Kingdom and there are people feeding the squirrels and the birds. And so then the squirrels and birds think that they can come to our table and jump up on our table to also enjoy our French fries. Example 2, we are at Disney Springs and we are trying to enjoy our hamburgers and French fries. And a squirrel decided that I guess it gets fed by other people. It jumped into our stroller and tried to climb up the stroller, which our child was in, to try to get to our hamburger and French fries.
We just started to kind of figure out COVID. Let's not get the bubonic plague while we're at it.
Like,
I mean, I don't want squirrels in my strollers.
I saw 3 people feeding squirrels from their hand with their actual lunch during our Disney trip.
Mhm.
And then when the squirrels came to just help themselves to our lunch, I thought of those people that I saw and
Mhm.
said, why in the world would you feed the squirrels? Now they think that humans share with them.
They're really aggressive, these squirrels. I heard a podcaster that I listened to who's not Disney affiliated, but he was talking about his trip to Long Island with his family over the summer and how aggressive seagulls have gotten and how they were
Yes.
like sticking their heads in their potato chip bags
Yes,
and just
rude.
like circling them waiting. I don't know what happened, but it does feel like the whole don't feed the animals things has gotten a little bit, it's kind of gotten forgotten a little bit,
Yeah, we forgot
which is
about
kind
it.
of a shame because I don't want squirrel. I don't want to go home and find there was a squirrel that was stowed away in my suitcase.
Ew. Gross.
You know?
I almost burnt our whole stroller to the ground after the squirrel tried to climb up the stroller.
Yeah, it's kind of
And
nasty, isn't it?
and if it was just the squirrels, just going on an adventure, that's one thing. But it wanted to share our lunch with us because we
Mhm.
saw actual adult humans, not children. We didn't see kids feeding the squirrels
Mhm.
because most parents would say, hey, don't feed the squirrels.
Right.
These were adults that were like, oh, look at the cute
Yeah.
squirrel,
And don't get
and
me wrong,
reaching their
squirrels
hand
are
down.
adorable.
They're very cute,
100%
but
adorable.
they're dirty.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't want, and I felt like one of the squirrels was going to jump on me when we were eating lunch at Disney Springs.
I know.
It was like it was kind of looking me up and down like, huh.
I
And
know.
I'm like, are we doing this? Are you going to jump on my lap and have a bite of my french fry?
And it wasn't afraid of us when we were trying to shoo it
No,
away.
it just kept coming back for more and I'm like, I'm going to fight you, squirrel.
We did not get in a fight with a squirrel, but Disney etiquette number 2, please don't feed the critters.
All right,
Like, you wouldn't feed the critters in Animal Kingdom, so please don't feed just
Right.
the natural critters.
You wouldn't steal a car. Why would you pirate a video?
There you go.
This one is the third thing I think needs to come with a little bit of a disclaimer as well.
Disclaimer here.
The disclaimer is as such. Everyone's cases are very different and everyone's needs are very different. So we are not throwing out a big blanket statement about what we're going to talk about because I just want to make sure that people know like we're not making big complaints about everybody. This is kind of more of like obvious this is sort of like exception cases, I would say. So with that,
Strollers for big kids.
mm-hmm.
Not like babies who are just in the 99th percentile. We're talking like your 10-year-old in the stroller with their knees bent all the way,
Who are kind of
watching
like
their iPad.
man spreading on the subway, sort of, you know?
Right. Like they're sitting in the stroller with an iPad with their knees bent because they just don't feel like walking anymore, but they're actually 10 years old
And
they're able to walk
clearly
by
walk,
themselves.
right.
Right.
Yeah, strollers were a really weird thing in the parks. And I think that because we had our own stroller, again, it's like buying a Volkswagen. You see Volkswagens everywhere. Because I was pushing my own stroller, I became very aware of all the strollers around me. And I wasn't just, ducking and dodging strollers just by myself, getting to the next thing. I started really realizing how many unnecessary stroller use cases there were. And it seemed strange. Like we even saw some folks who had double strollers, and one kid was very obviously pretty young and did not have the capacity to walk or needed a nap. Not to walk, but like to spend 12, 13 hours a day walking.
Right.
Like it was a little kid, and they were like, I'm probably going to need to snooze. And then they had their clearly elementary school age sibling next to them, who was like 2.5 times their size sitting in the double stroller. And I'm thinking, that's crazy because you have very little space on these walkways.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Disneyland, even less space in the walkways because it's a smaller park. They didn't have all the kinks worked out yet. That's what Florida was for. And it really is difficult when you have to kind of like weave in and out of strollers and things. And, because you're already dealing with regular strollers. You're already dealing with folks who need assistance with like little, their little scooters and things, like all understandable. Or wheelchairs or whatever the case. But then when you have like bigger strollers or like kids that could be walking, but they're not, they're just sitting in strollers, it's just a little strange.
It's most strange to me because this is our personal opinion that we've talked about when we were talking about Disney with a stroller and all the things. Our little one is only 1 year old. She requires a stroller.
9 months when we were there,
right?
mind you.
if we were to go this year, we would bring a stroller.
Mhm.
Like, there's no doubt about it. Little kids cannot walk around that whole day. And you certainly don't want to carry your kid around all
Mhm.
day because that's going to give you a sore back
Right.
and you're going to be sweaty and it's going to be gross. Even kids in kindergarten it might be a lot of walking for
Mhm.
them, or they might need to take a nap because it might exhaust them. Totally. Some first graders,
Mhm.
But when you're talking 4th grade, 5th grade,
Mhm.
that's when we were like, huh, there were a
Whoa.
lot of
Yeah.
big kids,
Yeah.
like big kids in these strollers, like Steven said, in the double strollers with their little sibling. We actually saw people who had like a kindergarten or first grader with a stroller, and their kid was not in the stroller,
But
and they
their
were
older
just,
kid was in it, right?
right, they just had their older, like maybe 4th or 5th grader
Yeah.
using the stroller. And I'm like,
Mhm.
what in the
Yeah.
world? It just doesn't make sense to me because taking your stroller is a lot of work. Yes, it's really helpful for storage, which we
Mhm.
really appreciated that we had
100%.
somewhere
Yeah.
to throw our bags underneath, to not have to carry. If we bought stuff, we just shoved it under the stroller.
Mhm.
Sometimes we shoved it in the stroller with our daughter where she would
Mhm.
hold the stuffy and we would just strap them both
Yeah.
in. But the thing is, strollers do take up a lot of space,
Indeed.
and when people stop in the middle of the way, that's kind of inconvenient. And then when they stop with a double stroller and they're just in the middle of the way with a double
Mhm.
stroller, then everyone's having to divert around them. There's a lot of people in Disney, so just like be mindful of,
Mhm.
what is the purpose of your stroller?
Right.
Is it to have your kid have a nice space to rest their
Mhm.
feet and take a nap?
Yeah.
Or is your kid really big and you're just giving them a chance to lay down and watch the iPad because it's hot and
Mhm.
you don't feel like fighting with them, and so now they're just taking up a bunch of
Yeah.
space?
Um, it's Thanksgiving week, so I had to go to the grocery store this morning. It was packed, and I was laughing internally because I saw a family, again, packed grocery store, right? Thanksgiving week. I saw a family and the mom, dad, and two kids, and they had two carts because I'm gonna say middle school. Their middle schooler was sitting in the cart with her iPad, and her knees were up, and they went well above the height of the cart. She took up the whole thing. Like, she took up the entire cart, like, was squished in there, like almost like a grown adult, a small grown adult in a cart. It's just strange. I don't wanna like disparage anyone's choices. It's just interesting to me, and I think the most interesting part of it to me anyway is consideration, and just like, I tend to personally make myself like 2 feet smaller when I'm in a space because I don't want to be in the way. Um, like mentally, I just sort of shrink myself back in, and I just want to be careful, like, to be very aware of who's around me and what's going on. And so I feel like if you're just like taking up space just to take up space, um, it can just be sort of a challenging experience for other people around you.
And I think that segues beautifully into our next one. And our point number 4 is oblivious groups of large people.
This was a tough one for sure.
I always remember this being a big deal. And I remember even when we go to places like New York City
Hmm.
or, any major city, you're going to deal with this. Sometimes it's culturally, people just are not in as much of a hurry as the
Hmm.
American, like everybody go, go, go,
Yeah.
get where you're going, get out of the way. So I totally understand that. And I'm not saying everybody's just inconsiderate. What I am saying is when you have like your whole family reunion or
Hmm.
your group of 10 people, and you're walking down Main Street and you
Hmm.
decide that you need to figure out where you're going next. And if you just stop and take up the
Hmm.
whole sidewalk, and now traffic is completely blocked
Yep.
because you all just stopped there.
Yeah, you literally just like didn't divert at all. You just stopped. You stopped right where you were,
Right.
and everyone has to suddenly like go around you. Like there's a giant trash can in the middle of the highway.
Right. And so it's just
I
like
did not mean to call people trash cans. That was just that was just an example.
what in my experience, I just try to like keep my head on a swivel, and if I'm
Hmm.
going to stop, I usually will like look over my shoulder and see if I can pull over to the side, just
Hmm.
like as if I was driving. If you were driving down the highway, you wouldn't just slam on your brakes in the middle of the highway. If you have to stop and look at directions, you would take an exit and pull over,
Yeah.
and or have your passenger look at the
Hmm.
instructions to see where you're going next
Yeah.
while you're walking.
It's strange. I mean, I there were moments where I'm so sorry for what I'm going to say. This will reveal some things about myself. But there were moments when I was like walking and people just stopped and I just continued straight on through it. I'd be like, excuse me. And I would just kind of go through their entire group because I was like, I'm not just going to stop and wait and go around and stop. I'm just going to be like, hey, people got to keep moving. So I didn't like push anyone over. I'm not
No,
doing that. But
but
I
there
would just continue on my path and be
right.
like, excuse me, pardon me, coming through, boop, 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 and just walk through. Um, there was another large group of people at Nomad Cafe,
Oh,
Nomad
yes.
Lounge, when we had very finite time because there was a wait. We got our text. We came over and we had the Festival of the Lion King in like 30 minutes. So we had to basically get in, order, eat, have our drinks, and then get out. And there was a group of 15, a dozen
It
or so
was probably like
people.
15 people because it was two parties
Hmm.
that had made separate reservations that were
And
actually
so
wanting to eat
they
together.
were all standing in the front area and they were like hanging out waiting. And one of the people, like they were one of the people, like one or two of the adults were talking to one of the hostesses about their table and trying to figure out their situation. And everybody else was just standing in the very front, like talking to each other. The kids were playing and pushing each other. They were just kind of doing their thing. And I'm just kind of standing there, like shifting my body weight around, kind of looking up and over, trying to figure out what to do. And eventually, I think it was almost 10 minutes later, one of the adults says, "Oh, hang on, there's people waiting. Why don't you guys move out of the way?" And I'm like, how did it take you 10 minutes to realize that there were people behind you waiting to do
Right.
something? When like all you had to do is say, okay, they're going to figure it out. Guys, let's go over here, step out of the way, make sure that we're, accommodating for other folks and keeping things going. Because again, like, just like the pure accommodation for other people is so, so critical. And I, I mean, obviously when I go to Disney, when I'm somewhere busy, I want to make sure that I get mine. Like if I make reservations, I'm going to get there. If I have a photo I want to take, I want to get it. Right.
Right.
I'm not going to like sit no after you. If I have a lightning lane, I'm going to get there and get in.
Right.
But at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm not taking up so much space and being so oblivious that I'm just stressing other people out. Like, I don't, my biggest flaw is I want everyone to like me so bad. And so I'm like always thinking like, how do I make sure people aren't mad at me? And that includes like letting people go in front of me or, whatever. It's difficult for me to wrap my head around not having the wherewithal to see other people and to be like, we're stopping, everyone get out of the way. Let's make sure everyone can get to where they're going.
This is actually a therapy for Steven. He's just
Yeah,
disclosing
this is my
all of
therapy session.
he's just
Yeah.
disclosing all of his personal challenges that he's working on. One of the other things I think with this too is when people just stop abruptly. There were times where we would bump into them with the stroller because they would just
Mm-hmm.
stop right in front of us
Yeah.
or cut somebody off because
Mm-hmm.
they weren't looking. When you're walking straight down Main Street and then people are going from one
Mm-hmm.
side to the other and they're not
Yeah.
paying any attention
Mm-hmm.
and they just randomly walk in front
Mm-hmm.
of you. And I bumped into a guy and he yelled a not very nice thing at me, but I was walking
Mm-hmm.
straight forward and, trying to get where I'm going. And he cut right in front of me and
Yep.
I bumped into him and I didn't mean to.
Same thing happened to me in Animal Kingdom where I was walking kind of I was walking quickly because I was trying to get somewhere, and
Right.
some dude stopped and he pivoted right in front of me, and I ran into him, and he like, watch where you're going, and I'm like, what do you mean watch where I'm going, bud?
And it
Just
happens. Like, there's a lot of people, so
yeah,
people are going to bump into each
but
other. We're not
again,
saying you can't bump into each other because you're going to accidentally bump into
but
each other.
head on a swivel, keep moving and get out of the way, which is simply to say like,
There it is.
just because you can't have one without the other. You got to keep moving and you got to move out of the way.
The next one, number 5, people who take advantage of their outside voices. I'm saying this way because when kids are little, you tell them use your inside voice. And then there's your outside voice where when kids are on the playground or they're at recess or, you're playing in your backyard, they're allowed to yell or scream or play. What we did not think of when we teach our little kids that is when you're in a place where there are a lot of other people around, maybe some contexts, outside voices should not be just a free for all.
Yeah, there was a lot of loud folk in Disney World this time around, especially like on the buses.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in lines waiting for things in the Emporium, like people were screaming.
Well, and there were adults yelling
Mm-hmm.
to people right near them, or there were times where our daughter was napping in a stroller nap and, we don't expect other people to be quiet.
No,
She can nap
of
in
course
loud
not.
places. So we just walked her around and no big
Mhm.
deal. But there were times where people would come and stand next to us and start screaming at their kid. I'm
Yeah.
like, do you not see the sleeping baby in
Yeah.
the
Oh my
stroller?
gosh. We're talking about two different types of outside voices. We're talking about people just like yelling to either get their point across or to call people over. And then there were people who genuinely did scream at their children. And I was like,
Which is a whole different etiquette.
don't scream at your
That's a different
kids. What
episode.
are you doing? Don't scream at people. That's not nice.
But yes, people,
Uh,
we're not telling you there needs to be a volume limit at
just be
Disney.
mindful of your
Just
surroundings.
be
Like
mindful.
if you're in Starlight Cafe or whatever, is that it? Starlight Cafe?
Cosmic rays.
Yeah. And it's loud in there, and you gotta shout across your table because it's loud. Like there's just no way around it. You gotta have a louder voice in Rainforest Cafe. Like there's some places where it's just required. If you're watching a fireworks show, you gotta speak up and kind of yell to your partner, to your friend, or whoever to make sure they can hear you. But there's just common sense. I don't know. I don't want to
I
like.
think the whole episode is really about
Yeah.
common sense, but we're just trying to say it in a more
I just want to be
nice way.
nice. Like there it is again. I just
There it
want to
is.
be nice on my own show.
That's okay. Well, let's move on to the next one.
I'm not gonna be so kind about this one.
People who blame things or get mad at cast members.
Hachi Machi, dude. This is a big one.
Guys,
I
cast
saw this a
members
lot.
are people too.
Yeah. I saw this one a lot when we were there.
And you know what? The thing with this one is the cast members are just trying to do their jobs.
Yeah.
They don't make the rules. They're not Mr. Disney himself. They're not the CEO of the company.
Well,
They don't
yeah.
make all the decisions. They don't make all of your food. Like the people that you're getting mad at that are front facing are just trying to do their jobs and help you. And they are so wonderful.
Well, and might I add, underpaid in a lot of cases too. Like the pay scale for Disney employees is not that great. So it's almost like yelling at a waitress or
Right.
someone in a restaurant. It's
they're
like,
just
hey,
trying to do their best.
They're just trying to do their job and they're not, whatever. But yeah, that one's a big deal to me. I do try my best to be as cordial to cast members as possible. Like one thing that the phrase that I use more often than not to somebody in customer service or when something goes wrong and I'm not the most thrilled about it, the first thing I say to someone is, it's not your fault. Like, cause it's typically not their fault. It's like processes and something within the process has gone wrong, right? Or, if your food comes out wrong, it's not always the waiter's fault. Sometimes it's just like a miscommunication all the way down. So it's like, there's no sense in getting testy or mad at somebody. And the cast members are there to like go out of their way to make sure you're having the best experience possible. And to be sharp and short with them is just, it's really not a good look.
We saw this a few times, unfortunately, too, when lines had to be emptied because the ride went down.
Mm-hmm.
And people were getting mad at the cast members that they had waited in line all this time and then the ride went down.
Mm-hmm.
The cast members do not have any control over the ride mechanisms.
Correct.
Or if the ride is having an issue. That's for your safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people aren't thinking those things when they've been waiting in line for an hour and a half. They get, people would get rightfully frustrated if they waited an hour and a half and then they get to the front and the line, all of a sudden, you can't get on the ride.
Yeah.
But that's to take it out on the cast members is just not cool, guys. Yeah. It's just not cool.
It's just, I feel like if you were to have like the universal you, if you were to have a broader sense of, the way that the world works and the way that the planet operates, it's like, it's not fair a lot of the times. And like it bucks pretty hard. So it's like if something goes wrong, it's not a personal offense against you. It's just sometimes how it works out. And there's no sense in getting angry about it. Sometimes you just got to be like, okay, well, no biggie. So
no biggie. There it is. Right. Do you want to talk about the next one? Because I know you had this experience.
I did have this experience. This was kind of a new one for me. And this is people that play music or videos or FaceTime in lines. So like the big like silver thread through this entire episode is just like awareness. I was in line for Splash Mountain. It was one of the few rides that I stayed in a long line for. And these two grown men, mind you, behind me were playing music on their phone. really loud. Um, and like playing YouTube videos and doing all kinds of like really loud stuff. And I was really stunned that, you're in like this confined space with other people and there's just like folks playing music on their phones. Like it's their own personal little Spotify spot. Um Bonkers to me. And then once you get into like the bowels of the ride of Splash Mountain, um, you're in the cave and it gets a little bit more echoey, and so that just like exasperates itself and becomes like kind of crazy. So anyway, that's one that's a little frustrating, but what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? The last one, and we'll just wrap it up here, is people who push their way to the front for shows or parades at the last minute. And what I mean by this
Mm-hmm.
is people get there, they get their good spot, they wait for a while, they plop down so that they have their perfect view,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden the show or the
The
nighttime
lights go
spectacular
out and people it just
start.
like starts like it's like a shrink wrap thing where it's just like everyone starts like pushing in and everything gets tighter and tighter and closer
Well, and not
and
even
everyone's
just
like
that.
moving their way in. It's
But
crazy.
not even just that. I'm talking about the people that were not waiting that whole time and they think all of a sudden they can just go right up to the front in front of all the people who have waited patiently.
Mm-hmm.
That's more what I'm talking about. And again, all of this comes down to just like awareness of
Yeah.
others.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please go enjoy your Disney trip.
Of
And like
course.
you are at the center of that story,
Of
you and your
course.
children. It is about you guys in
Mm-hmm.
that moment. But just don't forget that there's other people around
Yeah.
you. Like everybody's
Mm-hmm.
trying to have that same magical moment.
Yeah.
Make sure when you're having your magical moment that it's not taking away from somebody else's.
I appreciate you said they're like the center of their own story because I also live by the philosophy of like everyone's the hero of their own story. No one thinks they're the villain or they're in the wrong most of the time. So, you know, I just feel like it is fairly critical to, again, just be very, very aware of other people that are there, the folks that are, around you, and trying to also have a great time and have their experience be catered and special and unique and all those things. So that's going to wrap it up. I do hope that wasn't too off-putting or that we didn't seem like we were being too abrasive about our opinions. But these are just things that we noticed, and with how much stress comes with a Disney trip anyway, from the price to the crowds to everything. We just felt like we wanted to relay our feelings in a way that makes Disney consistently better for everyone. And no matter, whether prices are going up or things go wrong or, you're not getting the free stuff that you used to get, whether it's the Magical Express or Magic Bands or whatever, like the magic and joy of going to Disney, but kind of anywhere, is really, it's on us. Like it's on our shoulders, and we have to make sure that we're accommodating, to other people and being cordial, because no one's just going to do that for us. We have to, be be the change we want to see in the world. So that's going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We do really appreciate it. You can find us on Instagram at the Parks Academy. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all that. You can also follow along with our blog and our information on theparksacademy.com, or parksacademypod.com, I believe. And then, as always, if you could go on to Apple Podcast and hit us with a 5-star rating and a positive review, we would really appreciate that. We're having such a great time with this show, and we would love to be able to reach as many Disney fans as possible. So we'll see you next week. And again, we really appreciate everything, and we'll catch you next time.